Shalom, Shalom Israel. This is Brother Jakim, bringing you a Sabbath class. This Sabbath class is about the Sabbath. Write these scriptures down, okay? Take note. We definitely want to keep it under 30 minutes. This information will always be here, and this is just for you to reference. As you brothers and sisters wake up in the truth, they need to know how to keep the Sabbath day, and this is something real simple. I go through the verses and the chapters. Please write these down. Support the truth. Subscribe. Happy Sabbath. But first, we're going to go to Nehemiah. We're going to try to hit these scriptures. But as a repentant Israelite, we all grew up in Christianity. This is nothing new. We know how church goes. All right? So basically, we're just going to bring it back to how we did it biblically. In slavery, remember, in the church, there would always be a white man in there to make sure we did not keep the Sabbath day according to the Bible. Nehemiah chapter 9. So we're going to read. All right? So Nehemiah chapter 9, we're going to start at verse 26. Because something happened. Nevertheless, they were disobedient and rebelled against thee, and cast thou law behind their backs, and slew thy prophets, which testified against them, to turn them to thee, and they wrought great provocations. So it's like today, we're going to be teaching the Bible, teaching the law according to the Bible. People are going to be mad because that's not the way how their grandmother brought them up. That's not the way how their pastor taught them. We are actually going based upon our forefathers and how they kept the Sabbath according to God. We have been keeping the Sabbath according to European customs. Get that in your head. Okay, so nevertheless, they were disobedient. Jump to 27. Therefore, thou deliverest them into the hand of their enemies, who vexed them, and in the time of their trouble, when they cried unto thee, thou heardest them from heaven. All right, that's what God said. And according to thy mindful mercies, thou gavest them saviors. All right, God always had saviors set up to get us out of slavery, who saved them out of the hands of their enemies. All right, I told you that's what salvation is. It's not what they've been teaching us. Salvation is always about freeing us from another human being that is killing us secretly. When they cried unto thee, thou heardest them from heaven. And according to thy mindful mercies, thou gavest them saviors, who saved them out of the hands of their enemies. But after they had rest, they did evil again before thee. Therefore leftest thou them in the hands of their enemies, so that they had the dominion over them. Yet when they returned and cried unto thee, thou heardest them from heaven, and many times did thou deliver them according to thy mercies. 29. And testified against them, that thou mayest bring them again into thy law. Yet they dealt proudly, and hearkened not unto thy commandments, but sinned against thy judgments, which if a man do, he will live in them. And withdraw the shoulder, and hardened their neck, and would not hear. All right? So the Most High allowed us to be conquered by the other nations because we didn't keep his laws. All right? Let's jump to verse 34. Neither have our kings, our prophets, our priests, nor our fathers kept the law. That's what's been going on. Nor hearken unto thy commandments and thy testimonies, wherewith thou didst testify against them. For they have not served thee in their kingdom, and in thy great goodness that thou gavest them, and in the large and fat land which thou givest before them. Neither turned they from their wicked ways. Behold, we are servants this day, and for the land that thou gavest unto our fathers, to eat the fruit thereof, and the good thereof, behold, we are servants in it. So the Most High gave us the land, and the other nations are now reaping the better benefits. Okay? And it yielded much increase, unto the kings whom thou hast set over us because of our sins. So God always end up setting other nations over us because of our sins. Also, they have dominion over our bodies and over our cattle at their pleasure. And we are in great distress. And because of all this, we make a sure covenant and write it, and our princes, Levites, and priests seal unto it. So we made a covenant among ourselves that, guess what? We're going to start keeping the laws again, because that's where we had our power back in the days. Jump to Nehemiah chapter 10. Nehemiah chapter 10, watch this. And the rest of the people, the priests and the Levites, the porters, the singers, the Nethims, and all they that had separated themselves from the people of the land unto the law of God. Listen to this. Their wives, their sons, and their daughters, everyone having knowledge and having understanding, they clave to their brethren, their nobles, and entered into a curse and into an oath to walk in God's laws, which was given by Moses, the servant of God, to observe and to do all the commandments of the Lord our God, and his judgments and his statutes, and that we would not give our daughters unto the people of the land, all right, nor take their daughters for our sons. We wasn't doing interracial marriage, all right, that was very forbidden. And if the people of the land bring ware or any victuals on the Sabbath. So now remember I told you the class is about the Sabbath. I wanted to lead up to this. And if the people of the land, all right, outside of people that are not Israelites, because we were always around, they were always around us, all right? And if the people of the land bring ware or any victuals on the Sabbath day to sell, that we would not buy it of them on the Sabbath day, nor on the holy day, and that we would leave the 7th year the exaction of every debt. What that means, every 7 years you would have to forgive any debts anyone owes you. So that was our law. All right, that's where we get that law now today. All right, so that was just to show you when we found the book of the law, because in the book of Kings, we found the book of the law, and we started to keep the laws. And one of the first things we always did was to correct how we kept the Sabbath. All right, because guess what? The 7th day, usually they always had a lot of economics and a lot of selling and buying. That's the day that most people are off from work. All right, so this is what we have now today. Today's Saturday. This is the biggest money-making day. And that is why it's so hard to convince brothers and sisters that, guess what? The Sabbath day, the 7th day, all right, Saturday, you should not buy or sell on that day, all right? So let's get that again. I'm going to read that again. And if the people of the land bring ware or any victuals on the Sabbath day to sell, that we would not buy it of them on the Sabbath day, or that we would not buy it of them on the Sabbath day or on the holy day, that we would leave the 7th year the exaction of every debt. All right, so that's just to show you, even on the so-called Sabbath day that the world knows today as Sunday, do they buy and sell? Yes. After church, everyone goes to Golden Corral.
Restaurant riot. Police video shows officers scrambling to the Golden Corral in Brooklyn. Family dinner Sunday evening turned into more than a food fight, with as many as 20 people using brooms, mops, metal signs, and plates as weapons.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
West Park Road, Golden Corral. Whole bunch of people fighting.
Watch the struggle to sort it all out.
She involved too, right there. Y'all let her get out the door right there. Hold on. No.
All right. So that was one thing we would do. On the Sabbath day, we would not buy or sell. So take note and know that's one thing that you got to cut out. You got to cut out buying and selling on the Sabbath day. From there, let's go to Nehemiah chapter 13. Nehemiah chapter 13. Now, watch this. And verse 15. In those days saw I Judah, some treading wine presses on the Sabbath day. So we just dealt with buying and selling. This is now about to deal into working. In those days I saw in Judah some treading wine presses on the Sabbath day, and bringing in sheaves, and loading asses, as also wine, grapes, and figs, and all manner of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And I testified against them. This is Nehemiah, because he was one of the priests who was responsible to correct Israel. All right? So he told them, look, the Sabbath day, remember, we just start learning these laws again. We can't sell. We can't work on the Sabbath day. Y'all keep forgetting. Why y'all keep doing this? All right? In those days saw I in Judah some treading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in sheaves, and laden asses, as also wine, grapes, and figs, and all manner of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath. All right, on the Sabbath day. And I testified against them in the day wherein they sold victuals. All right. There dwelt men of Tyre also therein. Those are so-called Hamite, the other Hamite nations, the other black nations that are not Israelites, which brought fish, because we always did business with each other, and all manner of ware, sandals, fabric, vegetables, fruits, herbs, and sold on the Sabbath day unto the children of Judah and in Jerusalem. All right. Why does it say that? Because a lot of people don't know the kingdom of Israel, all right, always had two kingdoms. You had the northern kingdom and southern kingdom. Verse 17. Then I contended with the nobles of Judah and said unto them, what evil thing is this that ye do and profane the Sabbath? All right, so they know that was an evil thing to profane the Sabbath. And did not our God bring all this evil upon us? So they knew back then that God did evil and unto the city, yet he bring more wrath upon Israel by profaning the Sabbath. And it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, I commanded that the gates should be shut, and charged that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath. And some of my servants set I at the gates, that there should no burden be brought in on the Sabbath. So the merchants and sellers of all kind of ware lodged without Jerusalem once or twice. So they try to sneak something in, now and then. Hey, you need this, you need some shoes. Then I testified against them and said unto them, Why lodge ye about the wall? If ye do so again, I will lay hands on you. Nehemiah wasn't a man to play with. Nehemiah tell them, look, if you come here again and they sell anything, I'm going to have to put hands on you. Don't let me tell you all again, do not sell on the Sabbath. All right. So he says, verse 21, Then I testified against them and said unto them, Why lodge ye about the wall? If ye do so again, I will lay hands on you. From that time forth came no more on the Sabbath. All right. So all praises to the Most High. Nehemiah got through to them, the other nations, and they respected it. A lot of times the nations just got to know that we believe what we say we're going to believe, and they're going to back us up and respect what we're dealing with. Okay? The same thing with the here. If Black America would stand behind brothers wearing their natural hair, guess what? They wouldn't be putting these stupid laws in schools. Okay? Because as you could tell, the black dollar, the marketing to Black America is very important. And they always did it because they know our numbers. Okay, they know the numbers are very good. And if they can get more Black Americans to buy, they're going to be wealthy. That was always the thought. From there, let's go to Exodus chapter 35. Exodus chapter 35. Actually, you know what? Instead of 35, let's jump to the first law, one of the laws. Exodus chapter 20 and verse 10. Let's start at verse 9. Remember, Exodus chapter 20 and verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. How you keep it holy? You don't buy or sell or you work so far. All right? 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son nor thy daughters, thy manservant nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy strangers that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. All right. So the Most High showed us 6 days you work, take 1 day off. You know what I mean? Of course, right now we're in captivity. There's no excuse, because if you keep the laws and you come to work early and you do what you got to do, there's many examples where brothers and sisters got the Sabbath day off. So it's nothing really hard. You just got to start the process just like anything else. Okay? From there, we're going to jump to Exodus 35 now. I want to touch these verses. I don't want this video to be over an hour, because it's very hard sometimes to get it uploaded. All right. Exodus chapter 35 and verse 3. Okay. Verse 35, chapter 35 and verse 3. Ye shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath day. All right? What does that mean? There's no buying, there's no cooking on the Sabbath. Okay? There's no cooking on the Sabbath. Now, what that also goes into, there's no gathering of wood. There was an example that there was a young man that was gathering sticks around Moses, and for whatever reason, he got put to death because he was about to try to start a fire. Now, a lot of people will ask you, oh, you're trying to say you can't burn no candles? Of course, this is pertaining to food, cooking. If you can't see, you have to light a fire, all right? Things like that. But we don't use the microwave. We don't heat any food up, all right? On the Sabbath day, you prepare it, and there's a scripture for that, all right? So you don't work, you don't buy or sell, and you don't kindle any fire to start cooking, okay? So we're going to read that again. Exodus chapter 35 and verse 3. Ye shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath day. All right? Bam. Keep it at that. Let's go to Exodus chapter 16 now. Make sure you write these scriptures down, brothers and sisters. All right? This video is going to be marked how to keep the Sabbath day. And these are the verses that should be in there. How to keep the Sabbath day. So Exodus chapter 16 and verse 23. And he said unto them, this is that which the Lord had said, tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath. Unto the Lord they know what was coming, the Sabbath. Bake that which ye will bake today, and seethe, that means boil, that ye shall seethe, and that which remaineth overlay up for you to be kept until the morning. So Friday, bam, you make your unleavened bread, you make whatever cooked food that you need, and it will last. It don't even need to be in the refrigerator. But of course, you can put it somewhere. Anytime you cook any kind of food, it usually lasts 3 days. Okay? So what it's telling you in the scripture, you prepare the food so you can have it for the Sabbath day. Cut and clear. Bam. All right? So that's where that goes into. You prepare the Sabbath. Let's go to Genesis. Genesis chapter 2. When did this come in? Genesis chapter 2 We're gonna read verse 1 and 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. All praises for that, you know. So that's one of the distinctions, and that's one of the verses that testifies about the Sabbath day. All right, let's go from there to Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 10. I said, remember to write these down and subscribe also, guys. Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 25. All right, let's see here. Not forsaking the assembly of ourselves, neither as the manner of some is, but exalting one another, and so much more as ye see the day approaching. So of course, if you have a body of brothers that, guess what, you could be around, reach out to them and fellowship. If you could just call someone on the phone, you guys go over scriptures. The Most High say where there's two or more, okay, one or two or more, that's where the Most High is. So you have online classes online. There's a lot of people who are in cities that don't have other Israelites around, all right? But guess what? You plan, you say, brother, you want to get together this Sabbath? If you can't make it to that brother house, you could call, you could be in an online class, and there's fellowship amongst brothers, and exalt each other and encourage each other to keep doing the Sabbath work. Because guess what? People that are in the world, this may be their time to go and do their little sale, their little shopping, and visit their friends. But guess what? That's what Sunday, you could do that on Sunday. All right? So the Most High wants us to keep his Sabbath day. All right? Let's go to, so let me read that again, because it's always good to read something twice. Not forsaking the assembly of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exalting one another, and so much more as ye see the day approaching. Because we see the day approaching, we see the wickedness that's going on in ABC. They're allowing two boys to kiss. They're promoting lesbianism. They're promoting pedophilia, witchcraft. These are all the things that you see on TV during prime time hour. All right, I'm very disappointed, and a lot of times I just got to turn my TV off and basically just say, you know what, Most High, you have this in control. Okay, so we got to keep these laws so we're not touched by these plagues coming to America, because they're going to decide to do their thing, and the Most High is going to do his thing. All right, from there, let's go to Leviticus chapter 23. And we're going to start at verse 3. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest, and holy convocation. He shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. All right. So we just didn't have the 7-day Sabbath. We also had feast days. All right. And when you read on, it's going to tell you in verse 4, these are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in your seasons. So we had certain high holy days for certain seasons. So we just didn't have a 7-day Sabbath. All right. Of course, they don't teach us these Sabbath days in the Christian church, again, because we were taught. Everybody can agree with that. It's kind of embarrassing because you got grown men who are pastors who never got this information. But the Most High say, in the last days, knowledge will increase, and the wisdom of the wise will be foolish. Right. So we just read in verse 3 in Leviticus chapter 23, 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. Luke chapter 4 and verse 16. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read. All right. So this is where the Most High, the Most High Son did one of his first ministries in the synagogues on the Sabbath day, reading the history of our Bible and our also in Exodus chapter 31 and verse 15. What does it say? 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord. Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generation for a perpetual covenant. So of course, we were supposed to keep it forever. Slavery came and everything that we did, say that we were going to do in our kingdom, of course we couldn't do because we were under a new regime and they were watching us, everything that we were doing, and they didn't allow us to keep our laws. Now, throughout many of the captivities, they allowed us to keep our laws, but when it came to the white man captivity, he wanted us to keep his, serve his God, serve his pagan holidays, and that is actually why they're actually going to get the worst judgment, because they didn't have no mercy. All right, the other nations at least had like a little mercy. They were still killing us, but they were not really concerned about us keeping our religious activities. Okay, but there was one nation of people who are always nosy, who always want, oh, what are you doing? Oh, what are you doing? Why you do this? Why you do that? Yo, shut the hell up. Leave me to my God so I can serve him. Even when it came down to Pharaoh, we had to beg Pharaoh to keep our laws. Of course, the Most High hardened his heart, but for that, the Most High actually judged them, and he was killing firstborn. He was destroying their altars, their cattle, their riches, and they paid greatly. They paid with tears and with fear. 16. Wherefore the children of Israel kept the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. All right, the Most High made this a sign between us forever. All right. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God. So these are the scriptures you should take note. The Sabbath day, Genesis 1 and 2, chapter 1, verse 1 and 2. That's when it was made holy. Exodus chapter 20, 8 and 11, no working. All right, Exodus 16 and verse 23, no cooking. Keep it very simple. Exodus chapter 35 and verse 3, no kindling of fire. Of course, these days, most people have stoves in their house. All right, in the islands, yeah, we do sometimes use the coal pot outside, but this is going into heating up your food. All right, preparing your food, cooking your food. No, today is the day you just enjoy the food you have, and you go through the Sabbath. You go through the Sabbath rituals. All right, no buying and selling. You read the history and things like that. Nehemiah chapter 10 verse 31. All right, Exodus chapter 35 and 3, there's no fire, as I said. Nehemiah chapter 10 and verse 31, no buying and selling. And Nehemiah chapter 13, 15 to 21. All right, so that is basically it. Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 25, assemble yourselves. Leviticus chapter 23 and 3 introduces us to the Sabbath. Tells us that it's a holy convocation and we should come together. All right. Luke chapter 4 and 16 shows when Christ himself went into the synagogue and he actually taught on the Sabbath day. All right, guys. So write these scriptures down. Shalom. Most in Christ bless. I hope you guys have a blessed week. And pray the Father watch over Israel for good. Protect us from these pestilence out here. And let us be found faithful in his coming. Shalom.